Hey lady, welcome to Confidently Her. I am so thankful you are here today. Today I'm going to dive into something that I have struggled with for years, mom guilt. With the chaos of the past year, I think moms all over the globe are struggling with this at a higher level. You're homeschooling while trying to work from home. Your kids are eating more Pop-Tarts than vegetables. They're having more screen time than you ever imagined yourself allowing them to have. And then you pop on Instagram and see your neighbor homeschooling and juggling work life perfectly. And I say that with air quotes because that is something that you are believing based on the pictures that woman might be sharing. They have that laid out schedule filled with activities and snack times and naps. They're making their kids a healthy breakfast every day and still have time to share that they got time to get their workout in, right? This leaves you feeling less than and super guilty that you're not able to juggle the same way. But today I'm here to remind you, now more than ever, we are all in survival mode. You are doing the best you can. And you may have been in survival mode pre-pandemic too. Whatever amount of mom guilt you may be struggling with right now, I'm going to share some ways it doesn't have to deplete your energy anymore. Before I get into that, I wanted to share some background as to why I have struggled with mom guilt for so long. So if you're newer to the podcast, you may not know that I had my son at 15. He's actually 15 himself now. He's in driver's ed. Holy cow. But about 5 years ago, my choices from his first 10 years of life really started to catch up to me. My guilt was heavier than it had ever been because having him as a teenager was not easy. I did have the help of my amazing parents and friends, but emotionally, it took a huge toll. I was resentful for having lost my teen years and my body. I was resentful that I couldn't do what I wanted to do. I was resentful that I had a crib in my bedroom next to my Edward Cullen cutout, right? That wasn't a typical accessory for a 15-year-old's bedroom. And I rebelled and I made choices that have scarred me for life. I yelled when he wouldn't sit still to get him buckled into his car seat. I spent countless hours squeezing my new mom pouch and hating the body I saw in the mirror. I shifted my focus from my son and spent more time trying to find the love from the wrong men when I actually had the most undeniable, unconditional love from a boy right in front of me. I even moved away from him for about 6 months. Disclaimer, I had to record this about 5 times to be able to say this all without bawling my eyes out. There is a happy ending to the story. I finally woke up from my rebellious years and started making better choices. I started working. I started being more responsible. I did things that are not a big deal, but were to me at the time, like carrying his health insurance so my mom didn't have to. But the aftermath of years of rebellion suffocated me in the form of guilt and shame. I have healed tremendously the last 2 years, but it still is there, and I think it always will be a part of my heart. I started to try and compensate for years lost because it was almost like a light bulb went off one day and I all of a sudden appreciated Landon more than I ever had, and then everything just came rushing back. I saw him with renewed, more mature eyes. I started saying yes to things I couldn't really afford. I started maxing out credit cards, just trying to do anything I could to make up for mistakes that I had made. I couldn't stop saying I love you enough. I couldn't stop asking him if he would forgive me, and he did over and over again. I think the part that hurts the most is that I did so many things I wish I could take back during those years of my life that he doesn't even remember. I don't know why that part hurt so much. It's kind of a blessing, but it also created guilt at the same time. Whether you've experienced mom guilt like me for years or have just started experiencing it because of this past year of chaos, I am here to tell you there is some light at the end of the tunnel. Let's go back to the basics first. So what is mom guilt? It's simply the persistent feeling of not doing enough as a parent, or you're not doing things right, or making decisions that may mess up your kids' futures. If you didn't know what it meant, now you can understand why I felt all of that. Sometimes guilt is temporary, like maybe you were sick for a few days and your kids had more screen time than you typically allow. Or it can be long-term, like mine. I can't tell you how many times I cried reflecting back to the car seat example. My 17-year-old self screaming at the top of my lungs for my 2-year-old to just sit still for a second so I could buckle him. I was convinced he would be scarred for life. Guilt can come in many forms too. You may feel that dreadful weight on your shoulders, or you may have serious anxiety thinking about the need to fix it like yesterday. You might have both, like I do. In a nutshell, mom guilt comes in the forms of the shoulds or the supposed tos, or the other moms are ... pinballing around in your head as you try to navigate through your day. As mentioned before, a quick scroll through Insta will show hundreds of posts of what other moms seem to be doing so much better than you, right? From the healthy breakfasts, the art projects, or the matching outfits and sweet smiles. Little do you know, they may have thrown a tantrum for an hour before they got that perfect picture. Even the news and the media can create these types of feelings. Magazines, right? There are so many doctor recommendations out there. Limit your screen time, but allow for educational apps. Let the kids go out and play in the mud, but also keep a really clean house. Make sure to take care of yourself, but don't get down on the floor and play with your kids. The contradictions and expectations are endless. So what can all of this internalized guilt lead to? In my case, it became very harmful. I became obsessed with what I lacked for almost 10 years of Landon's life. I started spending money I didn't have. I had panic attacks and toxic thoughts that I couldn't control. Sometimes a tiny bit of guilt can actually be productive. Like if your child's been eating junk food day in and day out through school break and you start to feel that little pit in your stomach that it's probably not the healthiest, that can make things productive. But when guilt starts to shift your decisions that you previously decided was best for your family, this is when you start entering that dangerous territory. Meaning, like in my example, maxing out credit cards. Because I knew that I had decided overspending was not going to fix anything, and it certainly was not best for my family, but I was doing it anyway in an effort to make up for my mistakes. And please don't feel like I'm calling you out if you are here and you're in this position. I am just sharing that I was here for 5 years until I finally found a healthier balance. Breastfeeding versus bottle feeding could be another example. If you're a working mom and you and your husband decided that bottle fed was best, right? Then you scroll through Instagram and you see pictures of a mom and a baby bonding over breastfeeding. And then you start hearing from your doctor the benefits of breastfeeding. If you're a working mom and just trying to do the best you can, you may be feeling some sadness from your original decision to bottle feed. When these feelings pop up, it's possible mom guilt is becoming more of an all-encompassing piece of your life that needs to be worked through. Also, to be clear, there's nothing wrong with sharing these types of personal triumphs, right? Breastfeeding is a huge triumph. The women sharing those photos are not trying to shame anyone, but how you are feeling internally is an indication if you need help or not. Post-pregnancy fitness can also be another example. If you've made the decision to getting just in some light walks maybe while you recover and settle into your new routine with a newborn. But then you see other moms hitting the gym and getting back in shape as quickly as they can, and you start feeling inadequate. That you should be doing that too. Again, nothing wrong with that woman sharing her post-pregnancy journey, but don't allow it to alter your decisions that you made for your family. Stay in your lane. You may be thinking, okay, Megan, I hear you. I relate. How do I overcome it? I think it's important to note that this is a daily work in progress. You're not just going to wake up one day and your guilt will be gone. I think some of it just comes with the job of being a mom, but there are certainly some things you can do to help. Identifying the sources of your guilt is a great first step. Explore the reasons why you have it. You may find that they stem back to your own childhood. You may find that you're trying to improve on a parenting strategy that you feel your parents didn't do well. Maybe you're parenting with OCD or anxiety or another mental health condition. Maybe you've had past trauma. If I think about the whys of my own mom guilt, there are several reasons. And I would never use my past as an excuse, but I did experience trauma. Childbirth is traumatic for a teen. Death is traumatic. I had Landon at 15, and then I lost my brother less than 2 years later. I can now look back, though, non-judgmentally, and it honestly makes sense. But back to the idea of identifying your own, try journaling. Or when you feel the guilt creeping in, call a friend or your mom. Talk it through, and you may find a pattern starts to emerge. You may find it stems from your guilt that your kids didn't get enough opportunities to play sports, right? You might see other moms posting pictures of their kids playing year-round, but you couldn't swing it financially. Once you identify the triggers causing the feelings of guilt, it's easier to watch for them. It's also a great first step to make one change instead of feeling like you have to completely overhaul your life and your choices as a mom. Next, you have to find and own your own truth. Once you identify your triggers from your upbringing or whatever it may be from, you can move on to determine what your truth is as a mom. Figure out your family core values. Sit down with your significant other. If you value sleep and wellness the most as a family, you can decide to limit the TV to ensure bedtime is at 8 o'clock. If you decide as a family that you value time together, you may decide to make Sundays family day, no friends allowed. Whatever you decide to value, declaring it and then sticking to it will eliminate that mom guilt. Have you heard that you are most like the 5 people you spend the most time with? The next important thing is to evaluate your trusted circle of people. Ask yourself, am I surrounding myself with like-minded people who appreciate my values? If not, reevaluate to ensure you are listening to valued people for information. For me, I wanted to become the best mom I could. I started spending more time with women in my life who, in my eyes, were amazing moms and who valued the same things I was striving for. If I instead continued surrounding myself with people who didn't have kids or maybe did but didn't have the same values that I was trying to stick to, it would have made things worse, which, by the way, I did this for a long time. My choice in men who didn't want anything to do with my being a mom made the decision to stick to my core values that much tougher. Narrowing your group of people with whom you can discuss similar concerns and values reduces the unsolicited input from those who don't. Listen to your kids and trust your intuition. This is the next one. A mother's intuition is not a myth. It's actually the opposite. It's a strong source of wisdom that we can use to make decisions. We use this to keep our kids safe. I ignored my intuition for a long time. It truly is there for a reason. Your kids can also be amazing sources of information too. So if you're a working mom and your child keeps begging you to do a puzzle with them, it doesn't mean you need to feel guilty for working, but maybe schedule time after work to do the puzzle with them. I think as moms, we oftentimes jump to feeling guilty when there is typically always a solution. Guard your truth. Don't be surprised, and I'm sure you're not, that when someone challenges your choices and your values, instead of second guessing it, just know that it's okay to disagree. I feel like the times we are in now, this is just getting harder and harder to do. Someone is always offended. Everyone's right. You are wrong, right? Don't fall into this trap. Especially now, you may be getting pushback on your decision to not vaccinate for COVID. Avoid situations where you're constantly criticized because at the end of the day, it's not up to anyone else. It's your choice as a mother. It's your family. We may get to the end of motherhood and realize we missed so many moments worrying about what we didn't do right. We may have regrets, a lot of them. I know I do. More importantly, though, I think once our children are grown, we will realize that our amazing kids turned out to be just that. They're amazing. And not a single ounce of guilt contributed to the person you raised, but rather only inhibited your ability to enjoy the journey, right? Let go of that guilt. Love your kids and love them hard on your terms and in the amazing way that you do. Do not let others put out your fire. I will talk to you next time. Thank you so much for listening in today. If you resonated with this episode, I would appreciate it if you left me a review or shared it with a girlfriend who may need to hear it too. I'll talk to you next time.